Have you ever felt like something was deeply wrong? Like reality itself was off kilter? But you
Yeah.
couldn't quite put your finger on it. That creeping sense of unease, like a half-remembered nightmare.
I think a lot of people have experienced that feeling, and myths and stories are full of creatures that prey on these anxieties, creatures like the False Hydra.
That's interesting because I recently encountered a false hydra in my tabletop RPG campaign.
Oh, wow.
At first, my group was just puzzled. Things felt off. A note we'd found earlier didn't quite make sense anymore. The statue in the town square seemed different somehow. Then as we started investigating, the dread sunk in.
The False Hydra is uniquely terrifying because it's not just a physical threat. It's a creature of psychological horror that preys on memory and perception. It doesn't announce its presence with roars or violence. Instead, it subtly alters reality.
So what exactly does that mean? How does it work?
The False Hydra's primary weapon is its song, a haunting melody that erases memories of its victims. Not just from the minds of others, but from reality itself. Imagine waking up one day and your best friend, your sibling, or even your spouse is simply gone. No one remembers them, not even you.
That's chilling. So it's not like those sci-fi tropes where people are mind wiped and there's at least a chance of recovering the memories. This is a complete erasure from existence.
Exactly. And the insidious part is that the Hydra doesn't stop there. It subtly alters the environment to fit this new reality. It changes town layouts, replaces missing NPCs with fabricated memories. It manipulates reality to suit its needs.
In my game, we started noticing these little things. A clock tower, whose time seemed off, a shopkeeper who swore we'd bought something from him that we had no recollection of. It was like our game master was messing with us, planting seeds of doubt.
That's a classic technique for running a False Hydra campaign, the slow unraveling of reality. The game master uses subtle clues, inconsistencies that make the players question their own perceptions. They might find notes they wrote that no longer make sense or encounter people who claim to know them, but whom they don't recognize.
It's not just about battling a monster. It's about battling an enemy that can make you forget who you're fighting, conjure illusions of lost loved ones, and even rewrite the history of the battle as it happens.
Precisely. The challenge isn't just dealing damage, it's about holding on to your sanity, your sense of self in the face of an enemy that can literally erase you from existence.
What happens to a town completely consumed by forgetfulness if the Hydra wins?
In a town consumed by the False Hydra, life would continue but with a chilling emptiness. Streets might be eerily quiet, devoid of the usual hustle and bustle. Homes might stand empty, their occupants vanished without a trace. And the remaining townsfolk would go about their days with a strange sense of something missing, unable to pinpoint the source of their unease.
That's a chilling image. Like a town trapped in a perpetual twilight zone. No wonder this creature has become such a popular subject in tabletop gaming and horror fiction. The psychological implications are mind-blowing.
What's fascinating here is that the False Hydra challenges our traditional notions of good versus evil. It doesn't seek power or domination in the conventional sense. It simply consumes. It's a force of oblivion, a manifestation of the fear of being forgotten.
It's like the ultimate cosmic horror to be erased, not just from life, but from the very fabric of memory. It's a chilling thought, and I can't help but admire the creativity behind this concept.
The False Hydra is a brilliant example of how horror can be more than just jump scares and gore. It's about tapping into our deepest fears, the primal anxieties that reside in the darkest corners of our minds.
Thinking about it, there are so many ways a game master could make the Hydra's influence personal. Like imagine finding a note you wrote to a loved one, but the content makes no sense anymore because that person has been erased. Or waking up with a phantom pain, the lingering echo of an injury from an encounter you no longer remember.
Absolutely. The Hydra's influence can be incredibly insidious and subtle. It can manifest in seemingly insignificant ways, making the players question their own sanity. A misplaced object, a recurring dream, a sudden sense of déjà vu, all can be used to build tension and dread.
So what does this all mean for the players facing the False Hydra? What are they up against, and how do they even begin to fight something that can manipulate reality itself?
Fighting the False Hydra requires more than just brute force. It demands a keen sense of observation, a willingness to question everything, and most importantly, trust in your fellow players. The Hydra thrives on isolation and doubt. It wants to make you question your own memories, your own perceptions. So the key is to stay connected, to rely on each other, and to never give up hope.
It makes you think about those who face the false hydra, and what they experience. It must be a terrifying but incredibly rewarding experience. To confront an enemy like this and emerge victorious, to reclaim the lost memories and piece together the shattered reality, that's a story worth telling.
What's truly captivating about this creature is that it forces the players to face their own vulnerability. It makes them question the very nature of reality and confront the possibility that everything they hold dear could vanish in an instant.
It's a powerful concept,
Yeah.
and I can see why it's resonated so strongly with gamers and fans of horror fiction.
Hmm?
I have a newfound appreciation for the False Hydra as a storytelling device. It's terrifying, thought-provoking, and just plain brilliant.
I completely agree. It's a testament to the power of imagination and the enduring allure of the unknown.
Speaking of compelling stories, I want to give a shout out to LitRPG Reads and Paul Bello for their amazing work exploring the world of tabletop RPGs and fantasy literature. Their insights and analyses have been invaluable in helping me understand and appreciate the depth and complexity of these games.
Their deep dives into the lore and mechanics of creatures like the False Hydra are a treasure trove for game masters and players alike.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, if you're looking to learn more about the False Hydra or other fascinating creatures from the world of tabletop RPGs, definitely check out their work. You won't be disappointed.
If we connect this back to a larger conversation about horror and storytelling, the False Hydra embodies a shift from external threats to internal ones. It's not about a monster lurking in the shadows, but about the shadows lurking within us, the fear of losing ourselves, our memories, our very identity.
It's like the monster is a metaphor for the fragility of our own minds. The idea that our sense of self, our reality, is built on a foundation of memories that can be so easily manipulated, so easily erased.
Precisely. And that's what makes the False Hydra so effective as a horror device. It taps into our primal fear of the unknown, the fear of losing control, the fear of becoming unmoored from reality.
It's interesting to think about how the Hydra's influence might manifest differently depending on the setting and the characters involved. In a small, isolated village, the impact of missing people would be immediate and devastating. But in a bustling city, the disappearances might go unnoticed for longer, creating a more subtle, creeping sense of dread.
That's a great point. The setting plays a crucial role in shaping the horror experience. And as you mentioned, the characters' backgrounds and personalities would also influence how they perceive and react to the Hydra's influence.
Imagine a character who's already struggling with memory loss or identity issues. The Hydra's influence would be absolutely devastating for them. It would be like their worst nightmares come to life.
Absolutely. And that's where the role of the game master becomes so crucial. A skilled game master can tailor the Hydra's influence to the individual characters, creating a truly personalized horror experience. They can use the Hydra's powers to exploit the characters' vulnerabilities to make them question their own sanity and the trustworthiness of their companions.
It's like the Hydra becomes a mirror, reflecting the character's inner demons back at them. That's some seriously deep psychological stuff.
It is, and that's what makes the False Hydra so much more than just a monster. It's a tool for exploring the human psyche, the depths of our fears and anxieties.
Speaking of fears and anxieties, I'm curious about the practicalities of running a False Hydra campaign. How does a game master manage all the memory erasure and reality bending without getting bogged down in details?
That's where creativity and a bit of sleight of hand come in. The game master doesn't need to track every single alteration the Hydra makes. Instead, they can focus on key details, significant changes that will have a direct impact on the players and the story.
So instead of rewriting the entire town history, the game master might just change a few key events or introduce a few fabricated memories that contradict what the players remember.
Exactly. The goal is to create a sense of unease, a feeling of things being slightly off-kilter without overwhelming the players or the game master with too much information.
That makes sense. It's about creating an atmosphere of uncertainty and paranoia, allowing the players' imaginations to fill in the gaps.
Precisely. And the beauty of it is that each player will experience the Hydra's influence differently based on their perceptions and interpretations of the clues.
So one player might notice the subtle changes in the town layout, while another might pick up on the inconsistencies in NPC behavior.
Exactly. It's like a collaborative storytelling experience with the game master guiding the narrative and the players contributing their unique perspectives.
That's one of the things I love most about tabletop RPGs. It's not just about winning or losing. It's about creating a story together, exploring new worlds, and challenging ourselves in ways we never thought possible.
And the False Hydra takes that to a whole new level. It forces the players to think outside the box, question everything they thought they knew, and rely on each other in ways they never imagined.
It's like a team-building exercise on steroids.
Huh. That's one way to put it. But you're right, it does require a high level of trust and communication between the players. Because if they can't rely on each other, if they start doubting each other's memories and perceptions, then the Hydra has already won.
So what advice would you give to game masters thinking about running a False Hydra campaign? What are some of the key things to keep in mind?
First and foremost, remember that less is more. Don't overdo it with the reality bending and memory erasure. Focus on creating a sense of creeping dread, that feeling that things are subtly off. Second, make the Hydra's influence personal. Tailor the clues and challenges to the individual players and their characters, exploiting their fears and vulnerabilities.
Great tips. It's all about creating a truly immersive and personalized horror experience, one that will stay with the players long after the game is over.
Exactly. And that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? To create a story that will haunt the players' imaginations, to leave them with a lingering sense of wonder and unease.
Speaking of haunting stories, this deep dive wouldn't be complete without mentioning some of the other creatures that embody this kind of psychological horror, creatures that prey on our fears, insecurities, and sense of self.
Absolutely. There's a whole pantheon of monsters out there that tap into our primal anxieties.
Like the skinwalkers from Native American folklore. They're shapeshifters who can take on the form of anyone they kill, creating a terrifying sense of paranoia and distrust.
What a Slender Man, a modern-day Moody Man who preys on children and drives people to madness. His elongated limbs and featureless face embody the uncanny valley, the unsettling feeling we get from something that's almost human, but not quite.
And then there are the Wendigos from Algonquin mythology. These creatures are the embodiment of greed and gluttony, driven by an insatiable hunger for human flesh. They represent the dark side of human nature, the primal urges that we try to suppress.
What's fascinating about these creatures is that they're not just scary monsters. They're reflections of our own deepest fears, our anxieties about the unknown, about losing control, about the darkness that resides within us all.
It's like they're holding up a mirror to our own psyches, forcing us to confront the things we try to keep hidden.
Precisely. And that's what makes them so enduring, so compelling.
Yeah.
They speak to something deep within us, something primal and universal.
And that's the beauty of horror, isn't it? It allows us to explore our fears in a safe and controlled environment, to confront the darkness without actually having to face it in real life.
It's a cathartic experience, a way of processing our anxieties and coming to terms with the things that scare us.
And sometimes it's just plain fun to be scared, to feel that adrenaline rush, that sense of anticipation and dread.
I completely agree. There's something undeniably thrilling about facing our fears, whether it's through stories, movies, or games.
So for our listeners who enjoy a good scare, I encourage you to delve into the world of psychological horror. Explore the myths, the legends, the stories that tap into our deepest fears. You might be surprised at what you discover. And be sure to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. What other creatures embody this kind of psychological horror? What makes them so terrifying?
We'd love to hear your perspectives.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the False Hydra. A creature that preys on memories, distorts reality, and challenges our sense of self. A big thank you to LitRPG Reads and Paul Bello for their fantastic work. Be sure to check them out if you want to learn more. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those memories close.
And remember, the best stories are the ones that stay with us long after they're over.